Well, guys, it's nice to see that some order has been restored. I am once again in first after absolutely imploding during the month of May. Um, Still not great for anybody, though. I mean, I'm at less than plus 1%, and you guys are all hovering between 0 and like negative 2%. So I know that the Fed has a meeting on Wednesday about inflation stuff, which is always a fun topic. But what do we think is going on here? Do we think it's all inflation stuff? Do we think that some cooling crypto markets have had more widespread effects? Do we think it's a lack of available stimulus money? What do we think?
Mm,
Well, for like my performance this month, my performance this month is still just bad crypto investments. Like that's pretty much it.
Okay,
That's what
so
balance.
that's what you're chalking it up to.
Well, I mean, just looking at my portfolio, that's what it balances down to. I have like all of my stock investments are, hovering at modest gains or like slight losses, all within a few percentages. So like pretty typical. I feel like market activity, and then I have a fat minus 11% on Ripple. So like, I
I
mean,
feel like your Neo investment has been pretty good for you, though, has
my
it not?
investment was good for me last month. This month technically has gone down since the beginning of the month, so that's also a
Ah,
negative. Like it's one of
okay.
those things where once the month turns over, it's not
Yeah.
not
So
a great.
overall, it's still good. It's just not good within the confines of the calendar month of June. I
Yeah,
got.
so I mean, like, I don't know. It seems to me like it's just a normal month. I just have bad crypto investments, which okay, like
yeah.
doesn't seem like crypto has done too well for the last like three weeks now. So whatever.
It's been rough. It's been rough. How? What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same spot. Most of my investments are, well, I would say not doing super hot, but my biggest loss this month is Ethereum. So it's like,
Okay.
um,
What did you buy it at?
I don't actually recall. Let's see.
'Cause it's at 24 now. The
Where is
highest I saw it get to was hovering around 3,000 at one point.
I think I got in somewhere around there as well because I'm
Okay.
all time I'm down 60%. So it's like,
Okay. So yeah. So you had to have bought near the top then.
yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
So very, very poor timing on the
Okay.
crypto for me. But not too long ago, I got out of what was it? I think it was Litecoin or whatever. I jumped ship on that real quick. I cut the loss. I was like, no. I was like, I think I got rid of it like when it swung up a little bit at the
There you
beginning
go.
of the month. So like, yeah, I didn't take a loss on it, but it was, yeah, I had to jump ship on that, like my all-time loss. Um, yeah, for the most part, everything else like is hovering around like maybe 2 to 3%. Well,
Okay.
actually, no, not really. It's only Pinterest is up 4%, but like all time, it's down pretty low. Apple's 2%. Everything else is within 1%, so it's like, yeah,
Okay.
not super great.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like everything was going really well, and then the last like 4 weeks have just been really, really bad. Like
Yeah,
concurrently, a lot of things seem to have happened at the same time. Like the crypto stuff is obviously not great. Um, Elon Musk needs to get the hell off of Twitter. That would be really, really helpful.
Well, like so, like the crypto
Um,
stuff is like weird month to month too. It's like all
yeah.
time, Ripple's still a good investment for me, but like, and I like for Austin, it's probably still a great investment for
Yeah, I
him.
mean
But
he's still at like 19.5% all time. I'm at
yeah,
like
which I'm
four
sure
point
like
seven.
15% probably comes from Ripple, right? But
I'm
like,
sure it does.
so that's like 150% like of his initial investment. If he invested 10%, like he didn't invest all of it in Ripple, so
Yeah,
yeah. But like. So like, that's what I'm saying, but like, he's probably down like 30% on Ripple this month, or I guess no,
probably.
he's down. He's got to be down 16% because that's what we both had it at the start of the month. So he's got
Well,
to be
yeah. So
down
he
maybe
bought
like
it at like 46 cents or something,
yeah. Well, so
and then
all
it got
time
as high
he's
as like $1.90, and now it's at 80 something cents.
yeah, all
So
time he's still way up, but like this month he's going to be
yeah,
down. That's why
way
and
down.
he's got the biggest amount invested in it. So it's like it's kind of weird month to month, with those investments where you're like,
Mm.
well, this is still technically
Mhm.
good for me, but although in your case, yeah, since you bought last month when everything went to shit, then I guess it's
Yep.
just not great to look at. So
I feel like I just need to start like day trading some of them until I get myself back in the game for the year-long competition, and
Yeah.
then like resume normal activity.
probably, I mean, even like regular Bitcoin like seems to go through like a fairly regular like 5% up and down swing, like just from like the alerts that I get on different apps.
It's stuck right
So
now, dude. It hasn't gone. I don't think it's gone higher than 38 in
it has, but that's what I'm
weeks.
saying. It is constantly swinging between 38 and like 30, which is the chance to make a lot of money if you just play the constant swinging. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's kind of wild. Like
That's true. That's
you
true.
could just day trade. Like it doesn't. You just have to have like a certain lower and upper bound in mind. But you're just like, okay, like I
Yeah, I
know it's
mean, I'd
gonna
have to
hover.
put like hold limits on it or something so that if it got too crazy, it automatically bought or sold so that I
Yeah,
didn't burn myself too badly.
but I mean, yeah, it does require a different amount of setup though. So yeah.
It was all going so well. Enough commiserating, though. We talked last week, or I guess the week before, since we had a week off, about meme stocks and what constitutes a meme stock and what doesn't. And Kyle, I know you and I were paying particularly close attention to AMC in the past couple of weeks.
Which is
And
doomed.
now I see something come out from the Securities and Exchange Commission. And wouldn't you know it, they are opening a formal review into how the actual stock market works because of meme stocks. So the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, government appointed official, says that they are going to look at the role of high frequency trading and pay for order flow in order to make sure that the market continues to function the way that it is supposed to, and it appropriately accounts for the volatility and potentially undue amounts of influence in stocks like this. So, this obviously opens a whole can of worms for a lot of people because back at the beginning, we were talking about what will the fallout from all this GameStop stuff be? Obviously, we all came to the general consensus that if nothing else, it showed that the market was rigged for certain people. And if you knew how to play the game, you could do it very well and you could do it legally, while other people could not. So now I look at this and I think that some of this is finally starting to catch up in the sense that we're now actually paying attention to not only the ways that we have created for people to make money, but how those things are used to the benefit or detriment of certain groups of people in the pursuit of that money. So I guess I'll pose this question to you guys then. Is this a direct result from the Wall Street Bet shenanigans? And what does it mean for companies like Robinhood who make the overwhelming majority of their money on filling orders through pay for order flow? Like, does this potentially crater their market share and their ability to make revenue, or what do we think?
Well, I mean, they said they're going to look at it. They didn't see how they're going to regulate it. If they said that they're going to impose some sort of limitation saying that the average user can no longer, participate in these
Well,
sort
I
of
don't think it's about the average user. I think it's about the companies that facilitate the transactions,
ah.
is what they're looking at. And so in this case, it doesn't sound like if they decide to regulate it, obviously, is the big question. But if they do, it sounds like they're more concerned with the companies who facilitate those things and not individual investors or people actually making transactions.
I don't think it sinks their business model.
No? Okay. Why not?
Well, okay, because like these limitations are going to be probably revolving around the idea that what sort of leverage that you can extend these users. Probably, it's not if that's the case. They're probably looking to protect
Mm-hmm.
the users of the app by saying, okay, your apps cannot give out the type of leverage to the average user that puts them in major financial risk or whatever, right? Of having a largely negative account. So, I mean, you could say that that's a positive. You could also say that's a negative for the person. Like, you could say that's a limitation on regular investors that they're going to impose, basically, and saying like you basically cannot borrow the same way that rich people can, but it's kind of already been established. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point that part is a given.
And if that's how they regulate it, then I don't think it's going to affect them. Because most people who use those apps aren't using those kind of options and things like that. I mean, there are people who obviously do, and a lot of people on Wall Street Bets do, because that's kind of their MO. But the average Twitter user who hears about AMC and GME is just buying and holding. They're not putting in options or, like stop, they're not putting in different orders on different days and like looking to see what happens with it. Shorting the stock is something that they know someone else does. It's not something they do. So.
Okay. So it sounds like overall you're encouraged by the possibility of what this could mean, but you're not optimistic it's actually done well.
Correct.
Okay. Kyle, what do you think?
I mean, I mean, the big question was like, does it affect like companies like Robinhood and such, right?
Well, there's that, and then I mean, on top of that, the secondary question becomes, if they're actually reviewing how the market works on the basis of these meme stocks, like it can't be long until they start looking at the role of social media. It can't be long until they start looking at insider trading. Rumor has it they've already started doing some of those things too. And so if you start to look at all of those things together, you're potentially looking at some fairly disruptive, at least inquiries, if nothing more, into a lot of the things that make the market what it is.
That's true.
Which becomes really, really interesting.
Well, they can be disruptive if they say like, oh, like, like insider trading, the definition of, insider trading and financial advice, investment advice changes to where if you're talking on your platform, you can no longer just be like, this is not financial, like what we do, basically. If they're saying that's not legit, you can't do that anymore, then that does change a lot of things, right? Because like that, it doesn't just affect pod or whatever this is, like, talk shows or whatever, but it affects actual TV shows, like those dudes on those channels that just talk all the time. They got the ticker down there, and I don't like really understand.
Jim Cramer's of the world.
Yeah, like I mean, like he's us, but with like professional legitimacy, right? So like that.
Okay, well, I'll give you a different example then.
I feel like because of that, they won't do it. Like they don't want to really blow up the system, right? Like it doesn't make sense for them to. It makes maybe sense from our standpoint in some ways.
Well, right? So you have to remember that this is the government. This is not private interest to a certain extent, right? Obviously,
it's not private interest.
Political contributions
but this system does work for the government mostly. Right?
Yes,
like it does make them money.
People pay capital gains taxes and they make money.
Yeah, so like I mean. And, large sweeping change is dangerous. Like, like, just because we all think it's a good idea right now, and maybe it is a good idea, like, doesn't mean it will be implemented well, right? Like, what if the new system is worse? Or there are growing pains. Growing pains with with the world's biggest financial exchange, that doesn't sound like a good thing for an economy. Like, if everything tanks because like we switch how our market works and everyone's like, yeah, we don't like that new level of regulation going on in the U.S. Let's go trade in London or Tokyo or whatever the hell. Like that's probably not great, right? So.
Well, no, and I don't think that it will ever be too drastic because, to your point, they stand to lose probably more than they stand to gain if they do this improperly. But we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, like. You can't tell me that Elon Musk on Twitter right now is not some form of market manipulation. I just don't buy it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for like crypto, like especially.
Yeah, it's like. Yeah. I would honestly say that if it were me, something has to be done about that kind of stuff, right?
What would you do? Like, at what point?
And there's the question:
What point does it become a person just saying "I like X" on Twitter? Yeah. Like that should be allowed, right? Like if I like Dogecoin, I should be allowed to tweet "I like Dogecoin." But if I have 200,000 followers, is it suddenly not appropriate for me to tweet I love Dogecoin and then watch the price spike up and then I sell and then watch it tank? Like,
Well, and that's where it starts to get complicated because obviously you have to take into account total followership is one thing, but how much of it do you own to begin with is another. So when Tesla bought Bitcoin a couple months back, what was it, like $1.5 million or $1.5 billion of Bitcoin or whatever it was, like at that point, to me, it's a fairly straight line between I have a shitload of followers, I own a bunch of this thing. Me tweeting about it now seems pretty sketchy.
so then you need to be able to prove that someone was holding whatever they were
Like
tweeting about.
that to
before they
me
tweeted
seems
about it.
like it's something that they're probably going to look at and say, we don't know how we're going to fix this, but we know that we probably should, because ultimately
Well, does that?
my
Okay,
assumption
so
is that they're trying to control
well, that,
undue and improper amounts of volatility.
so
They're
that
trying to manage exposure to risk.
so that will apply to stocks too, not just crypto. It'll be like if I tweet
Yeah.
I like GME to my 200,000 followers or 2 million followers or whatever with
Yeah, I mean,
me
it would seem
owning
to me.
with me having some sort of provable way that I own GME at that very second. Then that would.
Well, and like public transactions,
Does that also
you
only
can
work?
get.
What if you just say something and it tanks the price because like what if I'm an engineer on the product and what if I just release a trailer for my product or whatever, or like a promotional video for my product and the product looks shitty in it and it tanks.
Well, and so you
Is
raise
that
an interesting
market-
point.
Is that market manipulation at that point? Because I am now tweeting. I probably own stock in the company, right? Like, because I'm tweeting their promotional material or whatever, and like, I had a lot of followers, and it definitely affected the price. Like what if Elon Musk had, instead of having a conference, he had just posted a video of that Cybertruck presentation, and the glass didn't break. Like that was it. Like he just posted that video on his Twitter. Or he was live streaming it directly on his Twitter account.
Mhm.
Like, would that be market manipulation? Like, that definitely affected the price of Tesla. But I wouldn't say it was market manipulation, right?
Well, and this is where we have to look at a couple of things, because to your point, this gets very tricky very quickly.
Like, if
First,
they say this was advertising, is that not market
well, and so
manipulation anymore?
you look at the role of a journalist, right? So if a journalist reports that, we'll use cars because it's an easy example. If a journalist reports that a new car coming out from somebody is like, you look at the Ford Pinto, right? You crash it in the wrong spot, the car explodes, you die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, announcing that type of stuff to the public is most certainly going to influence the price of the stock. But everyone would agree that the public needs to know that information. And so now you have to also dissect what is the role of journalism versus like,
Or just, like,
where I
advertising,
think they
even.
have to keep it focused on like the insider trading component, like stuff said by outsiders, stuff said by journalists and the general public probably falls outside the scope of this. It's only people on the inside who own a bunch.
But then things like that, what Elon tweets, like, I like X, that's not really insider knowledge, right? Like, it influences the price, and I agree it's shady as shit, but it's not insider knowledge, right? Like that's, like, how do you regulate that? Like, that's just an opinion, and it's clearly shady. I won't argue that it's shady with you, but I'm asking with you, how do you define how shady it is? Like, in a way that you would say that, like, that's
well, and so this is also where we have to make a critical distinction, though, because what could potentially, right, constitute insider trading for crypto and for actual stock are two very different things. Like, there's actual tangible information for stock.
There's things in crypto too. You could be like, I know that they're gonna fork off, or I know that they're going. I know what the new if there's some new coin coming out. Like, if you already know like what the total total available number of coins is, that would be important or whatever. Or if you know like what that what the expected hash rate is. Like I feel like there are tangible things you could know about a coin that could, especially the forking one. Like, if you know that they're gonna fork off and make a new coin based on this one, you could, like, that I feel like is, like, first off, a new coin is coming, and second off, that this coin had enough people interested in it that Like, you know, it has two groups of people interested in it at the very least at the original base. So it's kind of
I guess my argument to that would be that with stock, there's enough ability to tie potential information or new developments back to very specific fundamentals based on quarterly revenue projections and a bunch of other stuff. Because crypto is not regulated the same way, and because it doesn't operate the same way, you can know some of those things, but it's not that there are 6 people sitting in a boardroom making all of these decisions.
yeah.
Like,
So
people can create new coins and they can do a lot of the same things.
the
I
insider
just don't know if the influence works the same way.
the insider knowledge of crypto is basically just, do I have insider knowledge of what people are gonna like tomorrow? And that's the problem with it, because like, yes, you're right, you can influence that by being popular and just saying I like this, so more people will like it tomorrow. Like, that's the insider knowledge. Like, the insider knowledge is that Elon knows that Elon is going to tweet about crypto and drive the price up. That's the problem of what the definition is right now for crypto. And it's like, well, Elon knows that Elon's gonna tweet it. Like, can you really prosecute a person for that? Like, I don't know. Like, you know, like I feel
No,
like
and I don't think that this turns into prosecutions and throwing people in jail. What I think it probably turns into is fines.
oh, okay, but can you really slap a fine on that? Like, really, can you slap a fine on a dude tweeting that he likes something? Can you do it? Like, is that not free speech at that point?
No, at face value, you can't. And this is why this is such a difficult conversation.
So, yeah,
Because we all agree, in this specific example, right? We all agree that what is happening is pretty damn shady. The problem is that there's no clear point A to point B about what you do about it.
So it's my original question, I guess. Like, how do you define what is, what line do you cross? Like, it can't just be you tweet, because like if you just say, like, if you have, if you own something and tweet about it, like, people will be like, well, advertising falls under that, right? Like, if I'm just advertising for the company, like, basically advertising is like saying I like something, and people are okay with that because, like, I guess stocks are more stable, and one celebrity endorsing something isn't going to drive it up 15-20% or down the other way, like, in one hour. So, like, that's the problem. Like, endorsements are actually, like, are promoted in normal IPOs, or not IPO, but normal, like, channels of financial investments. And now you're saying in this one an endorsement is the same thing as insider trading, and that's very messy to me. Like, how are you going to maybe we just say, like, you cannot endorse a crypto product at all, ever. You cannot. You can state facts about it. You can state facts about it, but you can never say whether or not you like or dislike it. And maybe you could put that sort of line on it, but it seems very iffy to me. Like, I don't think you could punish anyone in the past for doing it. There's no way you would, like, no way you could, like, retroactively say, like, like, what you did in the past. Like, it would be like, in the future, we have just all agreed you can no longer say you like anything.
Well, no, retroactively, like, you can never do anything. I mean, that's one of, like, the core tenets of American democracy, is that you can't go back in time and penalize people for stuff. But I think you make a really interesting point, and that's why I think it probably starts with regular stock market transactions, because the amount of paperwork you have to fill out if you are an insider for that kind of stuff is pretty rigorous. Like, there are already well-established rules about how you have to do that. It's just when you get to crypto that things start to get really messy, because none of that exists. And so that's where I think it's going to get really interesting, because A, none of that exists to begin with, so you have to make it. B, it's not regulated at all. And then C, you already know that a lot of these really popular tokens have whales sitting on, 5 or 10% in some cases of the total value of these coins. And so that in and of itself creates a really interesting question too, because I feel like there's already more inherent vulnerability when a crypto whale does something than when a stock market whale does something. Like, those are just two different things because of the way that they respond.
So do you need, like, a separate exchange? Like, do you need a separate government regulating body? Is this not something that
No, I mean they
regular?
can do it. The problem is they just have decided not to. Like they intentionally haven't touched it to this point because they don't know how to handle it. In the meantime, I don't want to say it's the Wild West, but I mean it kind of is. You can kind of do what you want.
Well, I guess are they worried
And
that if they start?
it's not that it's all bad either. It's just it's really confusing
Are
for
they
the
worried
average
that?
investor to try to understand why certain things are allowed here, but they're not allowed over here.
Well, maybe they don't want to, I guess, recognize cryptocurrency. Like, I mean, once a government starts adding it to its regulations, like that's. Like,
Well, I mean, who was it? Was it El Salvador? Somebody just made it a national currency the other day.
well, okay.
I want to say it was El Salvador.
The national
It
currency.
was. It was El Salvador.
What is El Salvador's normal national currency?
Well, it's probably not worth a lot. That's probably
see.
why. They're also talking about using geothermal energy from the nation's volcanoes to mine it, which is kind of cool.
Ooh.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess.
that is cool.
A pretty interesting turn on that take on
Yeah.
it.
I'm trying to imagine like a big GPU mine in El Salvador. God, the cost of keeping that warehouse cold, probably not cheap.
Well, I mean, if it's all geothermal, you can use the same geothermal that powers the miners to actually keep it cold, couldn't you?
I guess that's true. Yeah. You're just like, I'm already
I
tapped into
mean-
this heat source. Yo, you use the output heat of the GPUs as a heat
Oh,
source
dude.
to cool the CPU.
Infinite energy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a ton of specifics. I don't honestly think specifics exist at this point. I think a lot of it is
This
kind
is
of
just-
talk about
It's just
we want to do this, but we don't know how to do this.
is the government holding part of its like?
I
So, like,
I don't know.
They're like, this is our national currency. Like, have they adopted? Like, does the government have a treasury of cryptocurrency? Because that would be like kind of big news in my mind, right? Like a government.
The only thing it
holding
says is that lawmakers voted in favor of a move to create a law to adopt Bitcoin as a national currency,
Hmm.
despite concerns about the potential impact on existing programs between El Salvador and the IMF. Which programs with the IMF are a topic for another day. Some of those are really shady as shit too, but we don't have time to cover that right now. But yeah, should be really interesting. Obviously, anytime you talk internationally, you're talking about the potential market for remittances and people sending money internationally. So in that way, I think this gets really interesting. But yeah, it doesn't sound like there's a concrete plan at this point. Something to watch, though. I mean, somebody has to be first, so good for them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if the U.S. government decides that we're start name dropping cryptocurrencies in our regulations, then I mean that would be pretty big news. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that's what it's going to take. I looked at it after this announcement, and it didn't really do anything. Like, Bitcoin itself did not bounce because of it.
Well, this announcement was
It's going
technically
to
that they're
take
gonna.
a China or the United States or India, like somebody really, really large is going to have to make some strides in the right direction
Well, it can't
for.
be China anymore, right? China's done the opposite. They said we're not going to use Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I
Use
mean.
our
They would
own
have
thing.
to reverse course and do something in order for them to be responsible for a bounce like that. Yeah, so really interesting to watch. I'm not entirely sure what comes of it yet, but good for El Salvador. You mine that crypto with those volcanoes. I was reading an opinion. They said that somebody thought he came up with it on the back of a napkin, but I mean, it's a cool idea. Try it.
It does sound a little science fiction-y. We will harness the power of these volcanoes too.
I mean, Scandinavia's got geothermal hooked up to volcanoes and
No, I
geysers
mean,
and all kinds of stuff.
The
but-
reason it sounds science fiction-y is because it's rooted in science, right? Like that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest points. So yeah.
Part of it is true.
You can use the heat of a volcano to power something. It's just
You can.
it's interesting if you choose to use it to power. digital
Can
currency
you
mining.
actually make it functional, though? In theory, there's a lot of heat and energy there. In practice, how you harness it is a very different question.
collecting it is expensive.
Yep, that too. Lots of very interesting stuff going on though with reviewing like a tangible review of how the market actually works. I did not honestly think I would ever see that. So I don't think a lot probably comes from it, but I'm very, very curious to see where that goes, if nothing else. Because that could be wild. All right. Well, I know we're about to wrap up here for this week. So we'll close with a fun question because I know we're all kind of stuck in neutral. Is anybody gonna make any moves this week to try to kickstart what remains in the month of June?
I mean, might sell cryptocurrency since that's just kind of doing whatever. Maybe I'll see if it bounces back to a.
Gonna get out of the game for a bit.
Well, I don't know. Some of the coins. I mean, like I said, like it's kind of hard to win a month. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to do the month to month when the price is so volatile at the start of the month and the end that like you could start at like a minus 10% hold, but not really feel like you should sell because like it's still a positive gainer overall. So like I'm not sure.
You either have to take your lumps with it and hold it long term, or you have to be diligently committed to trading it like every day to try to keep your ass above water.
So maybe try that. I don't know. Could be interesting, but
let us know if you actually do day trade it. I would be very curious to see how that goes for you.
Yeah, well, I'd have to find one that I like. Like I said, like could do Bitcoin. That seems to be kind of safer, right? Like the odds of that just falling out and crashing below like 25,000 all of a sudden, even though you bought it 30 something, is fairly low, right? But
yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of those buy the dip windows where if you're willing to be patient with it while it kind of
that does make the cycle longer though. I guess, though, that's the problem. Like something like Ripple flies past 80. It goes between like 70 and 80, 90 cents like every day. It's like okay, that would be more.
Just put $100 in like 10 different coins that are all trading at 2 cents and see what happens.
Well, so that's what we're talking about doing in real life, and that's kind of what I'm curious about trying. Like, I'm kind of curious. Like, if I load up an account with, maybe like a small, a modest.
I actually downloaded an app. I'll send you the link after. It's called Facebook Viewpoints, and basically you take surveys, and Facebook will give you money for taking these surveys.
Oh, okay. It's like the Google. Okay. Yeah, Google.
Yeah, it's like the Google shopper feedback or whatever that thing's called.
No, I used to do these things with, like years ago when I actually used Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, you don't have to use Facebook to get the surveys.
Oh.
But depending on how often you get them, I think the minimum payout is like it's a couple bucks, right? It's not going to make you rich. But if you just put a couple dollars in a bunch of different random shit and you don't care what happens to it, I feel like that's a really fun experiment.
Free money, dude.
And just watch what happens. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't your money to begin with, and it's not like it's a huge amount. If you lose $2, are you really going to be that upset if it goes to zero?
Exactly.
No, it's $2.
Yeah. So that would be actually pretty interesting.
That might be a fun side project. I haven't actually gotten to take any surveys yet. I think they just sent me one today, so
nice.
I'll have to see how that goes. See how involved it is.
Yeah.
If it's more than like 5 questions, I don't know if I'll finish it. But.
I don't know. Some of them back in the day, at least, would be like they're still like, oh, you need to install this app and use it for a little bit, and then write a review.
Oh
like,
no,
thank you.
Hard pass.
You want my
Hard
email
pass.
too? No, you're gonna get the spam email.
That's cool.
Well, Facebook already has so much of your user data anyway. Like, what else could they possibly want to know at this point?
That's true. But some of them were
just to spite them. I did opt out of some of their more advanced tracking with the latest iOS update, just to be mean and petty and see what happens.
I mean, I think Apple released like the statistics on that, and like 70% of people don't have disabled
the opt outs have been massive, dude. It's a huge number.
It just makes sense to me. I'm glad you guys have app permissions.
Bye bye, Mark Zuckerberg. See you next time. I wish. All right, so Kyle's thinking about day trading crypto. Kyle, what about you? Any moves on the horizon?
I dude, like Ethereum looks so shitty, but it's like, I guess maybe if it swings upwards a little bit more and like minimizes my all time, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I do know that I want to get rid of Pinterest and Etsy because those
Okay.
take the biggest swings ever. Like I was up probably 20 something percent, then I'm now, well, Etsy, Pinterest is negative 1.8.
Okay.
But I was up at one point like 23% on all time. So it's like, I don't know. It's a little too. I mean, like when it's good, it's good, but when it's bad, it's like kind of shit. So, and it hasn't really recovered. So I think Pinterest, if it gets above 0, then I
Okay.
will probably look to get rid of it. Etsy
So
is
if you can turn any profit on either of them, you're essentially out.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Etsy is pretty bad in the negative.
Oh, okay. So
21.
that one's a bit more of a tall ask.
Yeah, so I don't know if
Okay.
I'll be able to get rid of like Ethereum is my biggest loss at negative 60, and then Pinterest or Etsy, sorry, is negative 21.
I feel like cryptos can bounce back way easier than actual stock, though.
Right. So yeah, I'm not really sure. With Pinterest, I'm like actively looking to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Everything else seems pretty good so far. Like everything's like there's a couple that are taking losses, but for the most part they've been pretty good for me like all time.
Okay.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. But I think I do still have a little bit left, like unspent balance from getting rid of
Ooh.
the Litecoin, I believe it was that I had. So
There you go.
I'm looking to get into some. I've been looking to get in, like to put that into something, but I don't know where I want to put that. Like maybe.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. I just got to keep an eye on some of the things, I guess. But
I
so yeah,
gotcha.
I'm still looking around to pick something up with the extra capital that I have, and then hopefully this week, if Pinterest gets up there, then I will have much more capital to get into something. And hopefully,
Fingers crossed for you.
yeah, and hopefully that's the right move rather than taking a negative 60% hit or something.
Yeah, I couldn't take a negative 60. That
Yeah.
would be too much.
Yeah.
Gonna be interesting for sure. It's funny you should mention that you have money left over. I have a whole $143
Oof.
from my last transaction.
Go for
I've
it.
been trying to find a decent looking penny stock, which
Ooh.
again, hashtag not investment advice. Be very careful with penny stocks. They can bite you very, very badly. But again, all of this is fake money, so we're here to explore and experiment and see what happens. So I may do that because I need to find a way to dig myself out of this hole.
Are there a lot of penny stocks available on Investor?
I honestly haven't gotten super far. I just started kicking it around a couple days ago, right after we got back from vacation. So I haven't really done a lot of serious homework. But it's a fun idea.
Yeah,
Whether or not it actually happens, I guess we'll see.
it's the original crypto coin.
It is. You're not wrong. The OG. Alrighty, guys. Best of luck this week. I hope for everybody's sake that the market is a little bit friendlier. We'll see if we've made any moves next week. As we all hopefully can end the month of June in the green. Good luck, and I'll talk to you next week.